Hello and welcome to this space where I talk about the love of my life, Lucy like a charm, sharing how she inspired my research and artistry and brought healing and restoration to my broken soul.
Let me start out by welcoming everyone. This is such an important talk to me, near to my own heart. A little new business as we get started. Thanks to our Indigenous speakers that we have been talking to and looking at the relational nature of autistic culture, we have decided to start putting these recordings online as faithfully and completely as possible. Dr. Joe has been doing an amazing job getting them ready to put out there. So appreciate that. Can't thank him enough. But the only way we're going to edit, at least as far as we know at this moment, is if anyone talks about unaliving themselves or has a meltdown, because that's a very personal, almost seizure-like experience that we don't wish to exploit. But everything else in a relational culture is important, the pauses, the way people interact. We will continue to blur people out to keep them safe online. If you have a strong preference for not being blurred out, we can talk about possible permissions, and we're still working on that aspect. Also, this is, as far as I know, the only place in the world where people routinely get together, autistic, neuroexpansive people, to talk about, generate, make real, and define autistic culture. So we ask our guests who do not identify as neuroexpansive or autistic to please let autistic voices come first. People have been great about this in the past. Great to ask as many questions as you want. All we ask is that you don't debate or argue with lived autistic / neuroexpansive experience, since this is our safe place. And now, with that said, my wonderfully dear friend, Don Joy, is going to talk to us about our relationship with animals, something that, as I've said, is dear to my heart, and which over the years I have started to really consider what our special responsibilities are toward other expansive minds that might be marginalized. Yeah, and one last reminder, if you are not speaking, please put yourself on mute for those of us who are sensitive to auditory processing challenges, and I will turn it over to Don Joy.
Thank you, Dawn. First, I'm just going to put some links in the chat so that we can refer to it anytime that we wish. So here they are. Okay. Thanks so much, Dawn, for inviting me to share this story, and of course to Roger for all the coordination, especially the time zone thing. And thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. It's 9 a.m. for me in Singapore. This is, I don't intend this presentation to be a research one, but, you know, just a humble and very, as brief as possible, intimate glimpse into the most wonderful 10 years and 8 months of my life with a beautiful creature called Lucy like a charm. So for the researchy stuff and other things, the links are there. First, some background historical context. So I'm now 58, and I only found out, well, officially about my autistic identity in my early 40s. And during my childhood, which was quite tumultuous, I would find respite from a very dysfunctional social and sensory human world inside music, art, craft, and in the garden of our old family home, surrounded by fruit trees. We had lots of flowers and my numerous pets. white mice, guinea pigs, rabbits, ducks. We had a duck pen, chickens, fish, and of course, we always had family dogs, 2 or 3 of them. I particularly loved the Dr. Dolittle series by Hugh Lofting, which I would read over and over. I still read it. And even though I did know at that time, I was 6, I knew these stories were fantasy. But I was nevertheless very convinced that non-human animals communicated with each other in their own unique languages, and we humans could do so with them if only we learned how. Of course, as a child, you discover something fantastic, you want to tell everybody about it, but that was a big mistake because people just laughed at me and said I had an overactive imagination. Today, of course, more than 50 years later, animal communication has become a subject of extensive scientific study and practice. So, many of us can identify it's like we told you so. In fact, I even felt from the very beginning that the trees and plants somehow possess their own kind of knowing. And it's an idea which ancient humans believed, but somehow got lost in so-called modern civilization. Though it's now at last, amazingly, I'm so thrilled, re-emerging in the work of people like Suzanne Sammick, Sammich. She's the tree scientist, about how trees and mushrooms, they've actually made, electrical recordings, and they're studying. They have a kind of communication in their own unique networks. So I'm really excited at this confirmation because, something that I believed in since childhood, and it's now being validated. But at the same time, I know that a massive paradigm shift would be required by humans to embrace this. And I'm really unsure, even doubtful, if we humans are collectively capable of such a monumental transposition, at least maybe not in my lifetime, but let's hope. So we live in this human-centric world, and a lot of research, even amongst autistic circles, there are more and more autism researchers now. When I first began, I was one of the few, but now, every which way you turn in autism research, out pops an autistic researcher. But even within the autistic research circles, I've been finding that my ideas and that of Dawn, are met with suspicion and even disdain. So I've learned, from all this, that firstly, we are pretty much forerunners, and I really am unsure if this would take off, but I'm happy even to speak to the very few of us who share this paradigm, which is even unusual amongst autistics. Okay, so aside from my neurological differences with the majority, which, this is an essential and very precious part of who I am, I also struggle with another aspect of my humanity, one which I really wish I could be rid of, but it's a lifelong condition that, try as I might, I'm still with it. And so I'm now learning to live as best as I can with this very painful, it's visible physical symptoms that have confounded medical experts, since the age of 5. I have painful and persistent ulcers and arthritic-like flare-ups, which now medical experts say it's some kind of autoimmune condition, but they are unwilling to officially diagnose it because I'm missing one of the criteria. Anyway, it's something to do with vasculitis. Okay, so that's out of the way. My life story is one of privilege and persecution at the same time. It's full of oxymorons and juxtapositions of mental emotional chaos, which I liken to a very ominous and dark Artodian and Wagnerian comedy circus. But when Lucy entered my life, everything changed. Whether it's coincidence or serendipity, I don't know, but the name Lucy happens to mean light or bringer of light, in particular, the light that comes at dawn, with connotations of hope. And my name happens to be Dawn too. So here we go. Now let me talk about Lucy, who is the important subject today. In 2012, I was awarded a Ph.D. scholarship at the University of New South Wales, Australia, and I found myself alone, far away from anyone or anything familiar. Now, that's scary for an autistic person, but it was a dream come true. So, you know, do or die, I had to go. And my sister, my younger sister, Althea, encouraged me to adopt a large dog for company and, you know, kind of like a visual personal safety mark. And I always loved big dogs. But at the time, I was very reluctant to make this kind of serious commitment. So when I heard about how the greyhounds in Australia were used and abused and then discarded by the racing industry, I volunteered to foster a greyhound. And the rehoming organization sent me 2 photographs of a black girl whose racing name was Lucy like a charm. Now, to me, all dogs are lovely, and you know, all animals, non-human animals, are beautiful. And so there's no such thing as ugliness to me in them. But really, I couldn't tell from these photos that this particular dog would soon transform into the most enchanting creature I've ever known and become the love of my life. So now I'm just going to quickly share her photo with everyone. The one that came from the photo from the kennels, very unremarkable to me at that time. There she is. It's taken at the kennels where they keep them in a kind of hold. And there she is again. Here, to me, I thought, oh God, this dog looks pretty wild, you know. But you know, it's nothing like that when she came. Okay, how do I stop here? Right, now, back to Lucy. So 11th July 2012 marked the pivotal point in my life journey. On this day, Lucy, like a charm, walked daintily into my life, and she bore an aura of quiet, regal confidence and a kind of whimsical insouciance. And then what did she do? She promptly fell asleep in the middle of my living room. So this dog, at that moment, I remember thinking, gosh, this dog had it all. She had finesse, there was drama, she could hold a room, any room that she entered, and there was humor. And so there we were, a sleeping greyhound and a very wide-eyed autistic human, both women, both emerging from a life of slavery and launching into an unforgettable journey together. At the beginning, I was instructed, okay, do not allow Lucy on your bed, you know, because her future adopters may not like dogs on furniture. I personally think that this is quite ridiculous, but I tried to comply anyway. And so each time Lucy jumped onto my bed, I would persuade her most dutifully to return to her own bed, rewarding her with treats. And she was a foodie. So for a month, we walked around the neighborhood and I was greeting every interested passerby. And she was the first pet greyhound in my neighborhood, Paddington in Sydney. So, you know, everybody was interested. Yeah, I'm going to call. I want to adopt her. But nobody did. They didn't. There wasn't even a single phone call about her. And then one night, we both just suddenly woke up at the exact same time, and our eyes met for a split second. And in a flash, she was snuggled deep inside my blanket, and no amount of treats could bribe her to leave. She would eat the treats and then she wouldn't leave. And that was it. I think she was telling me very clearly, you stupid human, in no uncertain terms, you know, that I belong to her and she to me. So she made the decision. I signed the adoption papers very quickly, as supported heartily from afar by my wonderful sister, whose calling actually inspired me because she has continued to support, rescue, and adopt dogs in the memory of her first precious son. There's a beautiful rescued Bichon poodle called Biscuit, who's so full of character. So I think everyone who loves in this way will have their one amazing connection, you know, that one in a lifetime. So that began the best 10 years and 8 months of my human life. So now let's start with some more obvious, but less deeply important aspects of how Lucy made a huge difference to me in those 10 years. So in our public and professional life, it was Lucy who actually led the way, because I didn't plan. I'm not competitive and I don't really want the limelight, you know, so I didn't plan for this kind of public life, and I would never have dreamed of it. So she was the first non-guide dog, assistance dog. I think in America you call them service dogs, in my university, and also one of the first rescued greyhounds in New South Wales to become an assistance dog. So she proved that greyhounds can do wonderful things and deserve better lives than just racing for human entertainment and being discarded as soon as there's an injury. You know, Lucy didn't suffer any injuries, not that I know of, but I went into the database and I found she wasn't a winner. I mean, I think she was discarded because, you know, she only made, in her whole entire 3-year career, she only made $28,000 for her previous owner. Okay, but she's worth my very life to me. So because of Lucy, being the first this and that greyhound, I was invited to join rallies for better greyhound welfare. I met, you know, the greyhound and doggy community in Sydney and beyond. And Lucy even became the very first greyhound invited inside Sydney's Parliament House by Senator Mehreen Faruqi for the Greens, who was campaigning in 2016 to end greyhound racing. We were not successful, but that was, you know, a momentous occasion even for my friend who drove us there. You know, she had a pass and she still got that pass, and she says, I've been inside the Parliament House because it's full of security. You know, I had to clear so much security, and then we were escorted from the entrance by this big security people. It was a grand occasion for minions like us. So Lucy was the star. In fact, when they contacted me, they said, we'd like to invite Lucy to this occasion, and you can come too. So obviously I wasn't, you know, the one who was invited. It was Lucy. And in my professional work, my research and my artistic practice, I'm an installation artist, Lucy was the dynamic creative influence. She actually directly inspired my PhD dissertation about distinct autistic elemental empathic resonance with the non-human animal and even the material realm. And I was observing, by observing Lucy's way of sensing, I found, you know, an entry into richer interpretations of autistic sensory cognitive experiences and applied them not only in my research, but in the way I presented my art. So, and she even actively helped me to design and choose the materials. I'll take her shopping with me, and she would indicate to me which materials she preferred. I don't like competition. My childhood dream was simply just to get a PhD that would let me at last be a scientist and an artist, nothing more. But perhaps the universe had other plans. So because Lucy was by my side, it was just impossible not to be noticed. And I had to get used to that level of, exposure. She not only kept me safe, as my sister intended, by helping me make key friends in the neighborhood who would watch out for us, but she also paved the way to so many opportunities that I would never have had otherwise to showcase and present my professional work. And surprise of surprises, my PhD dissertation was awarded the highest honor. I won the Dean's Award, given to one PhD candidate per year. And I didn't even know there was such a thing. So we graduated together at the end of 2016, and everyone was thrilled to see a Greyhound on stage. So let me show you our fabulous photo. There we are. So yes, there was a lot of photography and cameras focused on us. Of course, during the long ceremony, she fell asleep and managed to somehow, slide, even though she's such a big girl with a huge Greyhound butt, she managed to slide under the seats in front of us into the next row. And that caused quite a pleasant commotion. Yeah, because people were giving speeches that was really boring. So see, Lucy provided entertainment anyway. As I prepared to bring Lucy home with me to Singapore, I was like typically, autistic, anxiety, and anxious and worried that Lucy would be nervous on her first flight. But, actually I was the nervous one because she rose to the occasion like a professional, and she charmed everyone from the security guards to the cabin crew and the passengers. She came on board with me in the cabin. And, she charmed everyone with her unique, elegant savoir-faire. And so once again, people were taking photographs of her. And, I practiced it already. I would just stand aside and let people photograph her because really I was not the person of interest. In Singapore, Lucy was once again the first non-guide dog assistant dog and the first autism assistant dog. Because at present, we don't have assistant dogs for people with disabilities other than vision impairment or guide dogs for the blind. And despite very limited public access, we still managed to attend numerous key events together. Two most memorable were my TEDx speech in 2018 and a plenary speech at the Asia Pacific Autism Conference in 2019. So she was there with me. In both Australia and Singapore, we were featured on television across all different media. I was talking about my research and artistic practice, advocating for autistic and disabled people, educating about assistance dogs, talking about greyhounds, and even promoting pet adoption. And our work has, and I say our because my work belongs to her as much as to me. Our work has appeared in print, online media, television, radio, conferences, arts festivals, and museums in the US, in the UK, Australia, Hong Kong, South Korea, Japan, and Singapore. It is therefore for me a very straightforward and unembellished truth to state that I really owe all my worldly achievements to this dog called Lucy. And now for the more interesting part and more important part to me is our personal life together and the life lessons that I learned. Unlike most assistance dogs, who are bred and trained for their jobs from an early age, they had no choice, and then the selected ones will be matched with the human handlers. Lucy was the one who showed me that I needed her to help me live a better life. Very soon after she came to me, Lucy began to perform very specific tasks, which assistance dogs are specially trained to do. But she did it without any instruction from me at all. Now, Lucy was a former racing dog. So how could she know all these things? And yet she knew exactly what I needed for my specific sensory anxieties and my lapses in executive function, even before I was aware of them. And then she decided of her own accord to help me. So this demonstrated not only acute discernment, which most dogs, if not all dogs, already have, but also critical autonomous choice, which few dogs are given by their humans, and even those humans who adore their dogs, our pet dogs, they don't have autonomy or personal choice. There's no agency given to them. But Lucy, she showed me very explicitly that she was no trained slave. She was a free woman, and she did it for me because she chose. Her public behavior already rivaled even the best trained guide dogs without need for any training. She never, there was no potty training issues, just some fear of staircases, which she overcame. But I also fear staircases, actually. So we both tried to overcome together. And all I needed to do was to get the human paperwork in order and learn together with her certain necessary human protocols so that we can go out there and be a team. Of course, in choosing to become my assistance dog in public, she starkly challenged prevalent human notions of interspecies relationships. Especially poignant to me was when it was time to retire Lucy from active public duty. I was asked by so many people in the disability sector if I was going to find a successor. I, of course, by then already knew I would never do that. But how could I explain to the general human world, to the world that I was actively trying to educate about the benefits of animals, blah, 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 that finding a successor would be the most crushing betrayal of Lucy's trust and sacrificial affection. The debt I owe her goes far beyond the obvious welfare requirements of adequate nutrition, comfortable shelter, hygiene, physical health, and medical care. So this casts a very, very sharp and penetrating light onto the problematic ways in which we currently practice human and non-human animal relationships. I don't have a solution to this. I'm too tiny and insignificant to challenge the system. But in her honor, I co-founded Singapore's only charity called Canine Assistance Singapore to bring assistance dogs to a wider range of disabled people in Singapore, to educate the public. But all that is on a very human level. And I remain in the board with the sole purpose, personal purpose, of trying my best to maintain and ensure the best welfare that I can for the dogs. Lucy also literally kept me alive. Now it's a bit of a trigger warning. I'm going to talk very briefly about suicide thinking, and these rates are disproportionately high among autistic people. Lucy saved me from this in 2016 during an intensely traumatic incident just weeks before the deadline for submission of my dissertation. dissertation. I received some very bad news, and I went into this state, and I remember feeling it was night, and I remember feeling that I wanted to just walk towards the balcony, and leave, exit. But she pressed her front paws hard on me, and Greyhound nails are something to reckon with. And I just woke up from this catatonic dissociative state, whatever you call it. And in that very instant, a very simple thought entered my mind, nothing lofty or super intellectual. I just remember hearing this inner voice. What would happen to Lucy if I died? And from that very moment, Lucy became my reason to live. Compos mentis, nothing fanciful. I was simply determined to survive because of her. So between us, Lucy was the finer being by far. She was for me a divine affirmation that my wretched human existence actually held value, meaning, and purpose. And for 10 years and 8 months, after a lifetime of not being able to fall asleep, having very disturbed sleep patterns, I just fell asleep gently and awoke gazing into this face of beauty. I remember consciously reveling in the privilege of holding in my arms a warm, vanilla-scented, silken velvet body in which resided an indescribable spirit of rugged gentleness and innocent zest for life. Never mind that other humans mistook Lucy's confident quietude for blandness. We revel in our own private world of empathic resonance, which is what my dissertation was all about. We shared an intimate, secret language, which Lucy taught me, unhindered by human words, containing eye sparkles, bum wiggles, cheeky smiles, ear ripples, chattering teeth. There were nose twitches. I learned to recognize the signals, tail lashings, and multi-tonal barks, murmurs, sighs, and whimpers. And of course, her medley of poses, that made her look as if she was dancing in her sleep. I called her my somnambulistic ballerina. And then her zoomies in bed and her masterpieces of coziness from our pillows and quilts, they brought me infinite joy and inspiration. And Lucy reinstated what was torn from me that was precious to my being in ways that no human or other animal ever could. She connected me with a spiritual dimension. I yearned for this, but never thought that a broken soul like mine would ever find. And you know what? I was lonely all my life, looking out for something, someone to represent to me the kind of love that I wanted and needed. But after Lucy came, I have completely forgotten what loneliness felt like. To me now, it's just an intellectual concept. I don't feel it. And even after she's gone, I don't feel lonely. I'm grieving, but the loneliness has gone. Then, I'm a musician, I'm a trained musician and a composer, and I wrote some little songs, insignificant songs, in 1999 and 2000, and I recorded them, but I never sold the CDs, because it upset me when at that time I was going to church, and the church people would say, "Where's the drums? Why does music have bouncy drums?" So anyway, these albums never went anywhere, but that was fine. A dear friend gave me the money that I needed to put these questions, these existential questions, into words and into song, and I was satisfied with that. I'm terrible at marketing myself, and I didn't have interest. They were questions and offerings to the universe, to God, in any shape and form that people would interpret this entity, to the universe. My good friend calls this concept of God the great paw in the sky, because, he loves dogs, he loves Lucy. And funny enough, all these questions about my helpless, painful human existence, dramatic prayers for peace and high ground, they found resolution in Lucy. And I played and sang these songs to her in our final days together. All the while, my soul was bursting with infinite gratitude, though my heart was really torn to shreds, knowing full well that this would be our last adventure in the mortal world. And that was when I came to the fullest realization that she embodied everything. She was the channel for everything that I asked for from the universe through these pieces of music. Well, Lucy left this earthly realm on the 9th of March in 2023. We're coming up to the first anniversary in human years. And in human years, she was 14 and 4 months old. She left as gently and gracefully dignified as she came. I promised her that I would not allow her to continue suffering. She told me, in fact, actually, she told me she wanted to go, but I begged her to give me just 3 days, one last holiday with her. And she just immediately rallied round. She started eating and she tried her very best. And we had that holiday. And that's now my favorite hotel, because it's dog friendly and they really, really loved her. They remember her to this day. And then after that, she had a major crash. And I told her, I won't let you suffer anymore. So I let her go. She was cradled in my arms. And still confident, lucid, and steadfast, lovingly gazing at me. And as her spirit soared towards an unknown eternity, a crushing desolation descended upon me. I'd never known this kind of feeling. I can't even describe it. And I desperately wanted to follow after her. So all these thoughts of exiting came flooding back, but with a great urgency. My entire world had just crumbled. Even though I knew it was going to happen, I reverted to my old struggles with severe insomnia. I could go 72 hours without sleeping and then crash the next day. And then, I'm still struggling with that. And concurrently, a polyphony of medical conditions, both extant, pre-existing, and so-called new, exploded with aggressive violence into the foreground. I had a near-death experience, which was very peaceful, and I wish, that it was my time to go. And I told God, the universe, that, oh, this is so wonderful. If it's time, please just take me and bring me to Lucy. I was bleeding out, and it was low. I had low blood pressure, so I lay down, no pain, nothing. And so I closed my eyes and I drifted off But unfortunately for me, at the moment, few hours later, I woke up and I said, "Oh, rats, I'm still here." So obviously, there's something for me to do. Although my existence has been marked by physical affliction, mental, emotional too, Lucy softened and alleviated this confrontation for 10 years. When I slowly found the courage to keep going, and I'm still here because of her legacy of life, I realized some things that people always say, but to me, it never made sense until now, that perfect love can be powerfully freeing, yet intensely excruciating in its exquisite, burning purity. And grief is integral to life, as death is to life. Grief to love, death to life. So the greater the love in life, the more profoundly and devastating the grief when death makes its claim. And now I consider it the highest honor to even be able to grieve for her. And this will be to the end of my own mortality. In closing, this is a tribute to my valiant princess, my tender lover, my creative muse, and my moral responsibility, who revealed infinite prospects, so vivid and so sonorous, that lie beyond the human obsession for navel gazing. Yet she's left me wondering, is it even possible for my limited human intellect and my human senses, to attain this kind of percipience that I've had a glimpse of, and to discern what I call the susurration of the universe? In any case, I made a promise to Lucy on her deathbed to tell our story. So although I'm retired from research and even art installation because of health, I will honor her legacy, to talk about her, to write what I think will be my final magnum opus, to complete our memoir fantasy. It's a multimedia autobiography in the form of fantasia. It's called Wake Up in My Dreams, as a testament to the love of my life, Lucy like a charm. So timing-wise, okay, I'm doing all right, but overrun. I just want to play you this last song. It's 6 minutes long. There is no fixed way of receiving it. You receive it, interpret it any which way you wish, or not at all. It's a gift from Lucy, actually, to everyone who wants and needs it. The images in this montage are previews from the growing collection of works in progress for our memoir. So I will not be uploading this into YouTube, but you can find the same song with old photographs in my YouTube channel, and you can access it and share it freely. So here we go. Share screen again. It's called simply Me.
Wow. This feels
Dawn Joy, there is no sound. Is that okay?
I'm sorry, did someone say that they can't hear the sound?
Yeah, there is no sound.
there's no sound from the start.
I think it's some adjustment I have to make, which I did not do. Can anybody? Okay, let's start again. Thanks for telling me. I'm very bad at this tech thing.
I thought that you were watching me to see if I would measure up and be what you expected of me. I thought that you were looking out to see if I could be all the wonderful, brave and strong, kind and meek things I could be. I fought with my darkness, afraid that I would sin, too scared to admit that I knew I'd never win. And yes, I know that trials come to make me strong, that every step I grow, the road is not so long. But I know now these trials help me see what you have always known, what you have meant to be. Yes, I know now that you have always known just what my heart could give, and how my love will grow each moment that
I'm sad to say that the sound disappeared again.
Sorry, is this okay now? No sound? Oh, please. Apologies. Okay, so it disappeared around here.
Yeah.
It disappeared when you said each moment.
So this is it. Okay, let's try it again. It's all right. Always know what you know. Comes your victory, and I know now all that you have always known about me. You want me to see.
used to struggle with my fate, afraid of disappointing, and trials were just questions to some awful mystery. I thought that you were watching and hoping how to find, and oh, it mattered that somehow the prize would then be mine. I wanted to win your heart, see your Lord with some great achievement, surprising with my efforts. And though I knew that trials come to make me strong, and every step I grow, the road is not so. These trials help me see what you have always known, what you have meant to be. These wings you've given me to ride upon your breath, that yes, Lord, I can feel. Trust in me, always know what you know. My love is strong in you. I must all alone. Oh, the wonderful things I've always known about me, Lord. I know you want me now to see. I've always known about me, Lord. I know you want me now to see. Okay. I'm sorry for the audio disruptions. But yeah,
I
so
agree.
over back to you, Dawn.
I agree with that. It's probably just a bandwidth problem, but I feel like it made the impression, like the music, what we heard, and then the pictures, so beautiful, so beautiful. It had me in tears.
Thank you. That is a high compliment from you.
So I think you and I may have discussed that I have had 2 service dogs. Both were older puppy mill survivors. And I so completely agree with you that the relationship that we formed was one of equals. If they had been trained to serve me, it wouldn't have been the same. And I brought what I had learned from the gorillas to my relationship with those dogs as equals. And that became sort of, I guess, if you want to call it a gateway drug to understanding that all animals have this capability. And that transformed my life. I mean, it's all about relational ways of being, and they restore that to us. All the animals, the plants, restore that to us as autistic neuroexpansive people. It's validating in a way, on a soul level, as you know, that just can't be found anywhere else. It returns to us a birthright. You talked about empathetic resonance. Is that how you had put it?
Yeah.
To me, that's the conscious hologram that is the conscious universe.
Yes.
But in your words, I'd love to hear you talk more about how our relational ways of being connect us to animals and what special responsibilities we have to align with them, to ally with them.
I honestly say that I don't have answers. I've been stumbling across more questions than anything, and I think we're just at the tip of something really vast. As I said, I'm not sure that my own limited human understanding, my soul, my mind, and my senses can properly process something so full of little important details, rhythms, and yet so vast. So as I mentioned, the simple, to me, more straightforward progress that we are making as humans has been to recognize sentience in non-human animals, first the mammals, and then now, there's a lot of talk about octopi, and it's something that I felt resonating from my childhood ideas. And the primitive humans, so-called primitive, but actually I think we've lost that, we believed in this, but I'm going to say something quite controversial, so forgive me, but the vegan solution is an immediately viable, the best immediate response to this. But now there's confirmation growing that even the vegetables you're devouring, the trees we're chopping up, have their own kind of sentience that humanity has not managed to get our minds around. I mean, we're still grappling with octopus, it's mind-boggling then. The trees, mushrooms talk, and now they are trying to get, to figure out the syntax, the grammar. What are we going to eat? I think the only thing I can think of is we need a huge, massive paradigm shift, which maybe we're not prepared for right now. And I'd like to say that there is hope, because if the huge entity outside our limited humanity is trying to tell us these things, then maybe there is hope for change. But I doubt it will happen in my lifetime. I doubt if I will get these answers, even for myself.
I was just sharing some textually with the group that basically not supporting factory farming at the moment is the best we've got.
Yes.
And in fact, it does affect fewer plants.
Yes.
But it's not a perfect solution insofar as there is no limitation to this consciousness that we must explore and react to as we go along. And I don't think that should keep us from doing anything. It's overwhelming, of course.
Yeah.
But to do those things and then continually ask yourself, what am I missing? How can I do more?
Yes.
It's difficult, but I do believe, as you said, that we're due for a paradigm shift, and I feel that autistic neuroexpansive people are going to be foundational to that. Do you agree? And what would you add?
I do. Again, my dissertation is just maybe a tiny little scrape on the surface, but I think that autistic and neuroexpansive minds, human minds, have retained some of that so-called primitive ability to sense. And it's nothing fanciful, it's not magic. It's just the way we connect to the little details, the rhythms, the patterns. It's like a piece of orchestration. You can hear every single voice. And so we currently, neuroexpansive minds are leading the way in this area. I think we've led the way throughout human history. I know another controversial thing that I've been saying, especially to Christians, is that I think Jesus was autistic. There are all the signs in there. So yeah.
That's an interesting point. I was just talking to someone the other day about in the Bible when Jesus overturns the money changers' tables. There's a line in there that often gets ignored, that he freed the animals in the cages at the same time.
Yes.
So what he was angry about in that context was the selling of sacrificial animals for for money.
Yes.
Breaking
a holy
I don't want to pick
relationship.
on. Sorry, go ahead, Lucy. Or
I just said breaking a very holy relationship.
Yes, a holy relationship, regardless of culture. I think that's fair to say.
Yes.
However that manifests. I mean, I'm sorry, I can talk about this all day, as you know. I don't want to keep other people in. So I'll be quiet for a minute if other people want to jump in.
The other thing I want to add, just as a piece of trivia, is that there is a story about Jesus' encounter with a dog. And actually what I took that he was saying is that the dog has a kind of sentience that may even be above our human understanding. But this story never made it into the Christian Bible. It remains and I don't know, Aramaic or Middle Eastern text.
The parable that Jesus told about the rich man and the poor man, the dogs were more of a Christ-like figure because the dogs are the only one who showed the poor man any compassion in the Bible. So it's no coincidence that God is dog spelled backwards.
That's what a lot of us say. But I think that's why reading these texts keep on pointing me to the possibility that he was autistic, neuroexpansive. The things he did, it's definitely not pro-establishment.
I would agree. But of course I got thrown out of church. I wonder if you've heard of Creation Care Church. They're really interesting. They meet every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And they're vegans. They're really interesting. Craig Wesco, he's a vegan Christian pastor. It's really interesting.
Way too early for me. Now with my current sleep patterns, when Lucy was around, she would wake me up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, and we had a very wonderful routine. But now I'm just all over the place. But I will Google it because I think you put it in the chat.
I did, and also they also have a Zoom fellowship after at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I got thrown out of the church for asking too many questions.
Questions is good.
Yeah. And of course, I told some people that Jesus was autistic.
You think Jesus Christ is autistic?
Well, I
Why
think
do
so.
those lots
There's no
have
proof.
fun assuming that Jesus Christ and autism have both in common? Like always preaching to Jesus Christ that they're by their side, and how they keep on seeking autism as an insult thing. Well, I gotta be honest with you. I really can't seem to get any connection between Jesus Christ and autism.
That's because on the surface, what we are taught by human leaders from the existing texts and stories, every piece of information that was handed down to me in Sunday school was geared towards humanizing, human-centric, focus. And they just ignored the rest of the features. So one of the things that stood out for me was his attention to detail, his recognition of the marginalized, women, and he mentioned dogs very many times, but in those days, dogs were unclean. They were considered unclean, even in the Jewish culture. He was a maverick. He didn't follow established routines. And of course, he was persecuted for that, and he was literally killed. And yes, the incident that Dawn talked about, at the temple, and he upset the tables. Our church, human church leaders tell us, oh, it's because, they were not doing the work of God, and they love money, blah, blah, blah. But Dawn highlighted something that I believe, that he also was trying to tell people that we humans, that we are just overdoing it. We cross the line where it comes to selling enslaved animals to worship the Lord. So he did a lot of things. Also, he went away from the hordes. He needed solitude very much, just like most of us autistic and neuroexpensive people do. And yeah, just very anti-establishment. I mean, he had women in his team, which is unheard of.
I
Of
think
course,
that
there's no diagnosis. I mean, I'm just guessing.
Wow.
I think that it becomes less controversial, perhaps, if we actually think about how autistic neuroexpansive people have a lot of spiritual sensitivity. And I think that we have sort of the spiritual matrix or the sensory matrix that's always shown up as shamanism or, so I think there's a lot more in common there than initially meets the eye.
Yes, and his claim, I mean, he dared to claim that he was the Son of God. It's something that only a neuroexpansive person would even think of doing, with consequences that were tragic. So I have no doubt he was who he claimed to be, or he was a madman. Like C.S. Lewis says, he's either who he says he is, or he's a madman. But the context and interpretation of his claim, again, fell into typical human hands. Recently, a Christian person who actually stood up for me, is the only voice, and I think he's autistic too, he's the only voice that stood up for me when I was being thrown out of my home church. He himself is very human-centric. And he just recently told me, oh, Dawn, you're living in your own world, a world of your own. And I'm thinking, I mean, I wanted to be kind because he was a good person to me. But I was thinking, what's wrong with my own world? It's better than yours. I am living in my own world because it's the best world for me.
Did I see your name come up? I'm sure you have plenty to say on this subject.
Yeah, the whole thing has just been indescribable. One of the coolest opportunities I've ever had to exchange thoughts about animals and spirituality. Thank you very much for sharing. It was incredible and very, very healing.
Absolutely, and profound. I just can't thank you enough.
Thank you. And thank Lucy. You know,
And
if not
and
for
it
her, I wouldn't be saying all these things.
and it validated so many things that I've thought. It's you just know them intuitively, but it was very profound. Thank you. I just can't thank you enough. It cheered me up.
My favorite quote from Dawn is that the one about how the gorillas gave her back her humanity. And this is what Lucy did for me. She showed me what being human for me should look like. You know, I'm not there yet, but a small little glimpse, it is validating that my existence is just not simply trash.
I can remember the first time I ever got to put my fingers as a baby into a dog's fur. It was all I wanted. The minute I saw the dog, it was like the universe changed for me. And I had my fingers out wiggling them, and it was I was only a few months old, but I spotted every single dog, and that was all I could think about was that incredible thing. was,
Yes.
So I shared a lot of your passion. It's a lot of, but I feel that way about everything. Bugs, but dogs and cats are. I can't say that. I mean, they are, but I just love how everything is woven together in what can only be described as pure magic. There's just no way to describe all the relationships, the symbiotic relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I loved animals since the very beginning, but I had to lose a lot of that thinking, just trying to survive in a typical world. And Lucy brought it all back to me, affirmation and validation. It's a slow climb back into my Zen reality. Yes, thanks to Dawn telling me about spiders.
Spiders, yes.
Living in my room right now. Previously, I would have freaked out, you know. So he or she, or they are getting rid of other bugs. So it's an ecosystem. But I haven't begun to talk to spiders yet, although I do say, look, I'm very sorry, but I have to move you somewhere else. You know, can you please try that corner for your web instead of in front of my computer?
Yeah, I have long talks with spiders.
It's amazing, right? They understand us. I have this feeling that they understand us so much more than we can understand them. And, you know, now there's this phenomenon of the talking dog using buttons to express English. And it's a feat to train a dog to do that. The dog must really want to communicate with us stupid humans. And with that time and effort, why don't us humans try to figure out their communication instead of forcing them to communicate our way? I have no answers to that, but I tried it stupidly. I tried it on Lucy, and she told me without any very clearly, I'm having none of this. I already taught you this language. You work on it. You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I watch films of those dogs and cats that are using the buttons, and it's so clear that they are going so much over halfway. And the
Yes.
human beings refuse to engage them on their own terms with a mix of animal language.
Yes. They're not even observing because they are putting so much of their effort into making videos, into going on TikTok. I mean, there's nothing wrong per se, but here's an animal that desperately wants to tell you something, and an animal that you profess to love, you know? That's...
I love the story about the border collie. and how they gave it, I guess, over 1,000 different
2,000.
things. Yeah. And it picked out the one, they gave it a name and it couldn't find it, so through deductive reasoning, decided that it was the one that it didn't have a name for.
Yes.
It's just amazing once you get to. I mean, I've actually seen goldfish that I've had where one of the goldfish got sick, and the goldfish spent almost 24 hours picking that fish up and lifting it up out of the
Yes.
water.
Yes.
And she almost gave up her own life to save her friend.
Yes.
But it was, and if a goldfish could show that much compassion for another creature, it's a friend, was one of the finest examples of love I'd ever seen on something that you isn't supposed to have those kind of feelings.
Us humans don't think they have it, you know.
Exactly.
I had the same experience. Very quickly, I rescued a fish that grew another set of legs, mine, and I stole the fish from the store, and I put it in the tank, and it lost both of its eyes, went down to the corner of the tank, basically to die. I decided to sit with it, and over the next hour and a half, this fish, other goldfish, came down, gill to gill, stayed with the fish, and then eventually started bumping the blind fish all over the tank to make it figure out where it was going and get its bearings. And then the other fish started either bumping the fish up to eat, or they would gulp food and bring it down, because he liked to bump along the bottom with his tummy, and they would blow the food into his mouth.
I know I've seen miraculous things, but it's only because we're looking. Nobody else, even in these slaughterhouses, and I watch tons and tons of videos about what animals, their interactions with people and under those conditions. And I heard one, and then I saw it, where these pigs all got together and they were being electrocuted right behind their heads. And every time one of them was electrocuted and it was having seizures, they would all sit on top of it with their weight and calm it down while they knew that the guy was reaching for one of them, but they didn't react. They didn't try to attack him. All they thought about was comforting each other. And they did it over and over and over because, needless to say, the slaughter didn't stop, probably 24/7. And I never saw such beautiful compassion. Now, if what Christ didn't impress everybody, what these pigs did was extraordinary.
Yes.
And I see that stuff every day. I don't know how I have the stomach sometimes to keep on advocating for things, but but then I think about humans in prison and what we do to each other. My God, it's cruel, and we don't, and it's all for profit. We'd figure out how to fix things if somebody wasn't making so much money.
I know it happened in my own family. The powerful, I mean, I come from a very dysfunctional, neurodivergent family. And humans just bully each other for gain, for money. And it's just horrible. The Chinese have this saying that, yeah, the most powerful, the most violent will win.
But that would mean that would be a lot more trouble to cause somewhere else. Because we all know that people these days might have instincts and alignments, virtues, and our inner struggles. when interacting with many others, including animals. But one way after another, it is never to be okay to act really like a bully kind of person to do such a thing. And who else would ever do such a thing? Back when I was a kid, I usually end up being raised up by my family members who had a really tough time. But moving onwards, over time, my parents and my family members were acting real aggressive these days. And then, once I grew up, well, interactions with many other people is. It just makes me feel like I'm the terrible person to ever meet through violence and physical harm. But a lot of the people in my middle school days tend to put me into in-school suspension because of how I acted on. And it only happened on 8th grade. I just can't seem to get everything right.
I'm sorry about that. That sounds.
Resonates with many of us. Yeah.
Middle school year was torture for me. Don't you get it? 6th grade was a huge nuisance. Even 7th grade just makes me look like a nerd. And 8th grade just made me look like a bully.
Yep. Yeah, I grew up that way.
You do?
Yeah, my teachers said I was stupid, lazy. My art teacher told me I would never become an artist because I couldn't color within the lines. It took me decades to strike out and do what I love doing, and the PhD was the best 4 years out of the wonderful 10 years. You know, people tell you, oh, it's horrible, blah, blah, blah. Then why are they doing it? Well, they're doing it for maybe worldly gain. But I got no worldly gain from it. I received a spiritual insight from Lucy and a wonderful experience and affirmation of who I am. But when I came back to Singapore, I couldn't get a job because I'm openly autistic and everybody in the autism world knows who I am. So that worked against me. So for the last 7 years, I've been doing little piecemeal jobs supported by the good portion of my family, mainly my younger sister and her husband. And they have given me the means to go out there and do volunteer work. So, yeah, I have found no worldly success. But I'm very thankful and grateful to the people who have supported me and to Lucy who has opened up this world of selfhood that I desperately wanted.
Yeah. I too am an artist just like you. Only for illustrated proposal on making such cartoons and comics like that. But it only happened back during the times of the year 2010 decade, when I have faced many of the obstacles because of the human behaviors going on. So I had to resort to drawing pictures just to express things on how they act or how I'm acting. It may not be well rounded to be okay because of how I perceive. But those who oppose me, I would more than likely just perceived him as a mere enemy for calling me a bad person. In early 2020s is a huge struggle to me, as I refuse to be stuck in a loop, an endless cycle of being bullied and to be a bully like that. But this time, it's on the internet. People really need to get their facts straight, because they don't even get the message that I was trying to send to through my illustrations. Like how I feel and how I act upon those who decide to play ridiculous things over and over. All they resort to is mind games and playing nasty tricks out of me while drawing hate art out of me.
Well, if I could jump in, I think that all of this is related. How we treat living things that don't think exactly like us, but clearly have value and heart and relational connection is all the same. If we treat one group of sentient beings badly, it sets us up to treat whoever we want badly. And certainly history has borne out that we, as neuroexpansive people, Nazi Germany comes to mind. We were treated exactly like factory farmed animals today. And to me, there's a natural alliance for anyone who is bullied or experiences cruelty and is forced to shut down or not participate. It's all the same. And I hope we can help each other work toward a world where casual cruelty is not the norm, that acceptance and connection and relationality becomes the way of all culture. We're kind of winding down time-wise, and I want to be sure to give other people a chance to say anything they want. Anyone?
I just wanted to thank you real quick.
Okay.
I gotta go. Love meeting you.
Likewise.
Are you there?
I just turned my mic off. Dawn Joy, so lovely to see you in real time, and and to have all of us on the same screen at the same time, just really beautiful and wonderful. So there's nothing more to say other than that. I just really appreciated hearing more about your time with Lucy, like a charm.
Thank you. Thank you for being so supportive. I know you're always looking out for me.
Anyone else?
Dawn Joy, I love
Sorry.
it. Just say thank you. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I wanted to say thank you also, Dawn Joy, and to Lucy, especially for sharing what you shared about the end of Lucy's life. It's been about 2.5 weeks now since my dog was diagnosed with end-stage renal failure, and I really appreciated what you said about gratitude, especially. Really resonated with me and made me cry in a good way. Something that a student said to me the other day, actually, that this end of life period, it's not necessarily the end of our relationship, but a different kind of relationship. And I just am really feeling so much gratitude for what relationship we're able to have as we're doing like hospice care at home. And I just really felt like in community hearing from you and Lucy on this as well. I didn't bring up here to this room with me because my partner was eating dinner when we started, and she was very committed to helping him eat dinner. But I really appreciate the opportunity to feel along with you.
You know, end-of-life care is an honor for us humans. And, you know, it was tiring because she needed 24/7 care. But I think in a strange way, I felt so wonderful that I was able to give back to her, you know. And I don't know if I prolonged her suffering just by asking her for one more holiday. I don't know, but she's so full of grace. And I think the biggest lesson I learned is to receive grace. It's easier for us humans to take the higher ground and, you know, look down and say, oh, I'm helping you. But it's humbling and enormously honoring of the relationship to receive grace from the other entity.
Our hearts are with you. That's a very difficult thing to hear and very difficult to go through. And we're here for you. I hope you know that.
Thank you. And I will tell she loves hearing all the love that she's getting from her dog friends and her human friends. She's feeling good.
We're with you.
Yeah. That time when I have an internet friend of mine that his dog died, I still ponder to this day on how to, on where do dogs go after they die? To heaven? Even I thought so, too. For most.
If there is a heaven, they're definitely there.
Yes. Yes. And as we close, I would also like to point out that we have talked about some hugely controversial things as we've sat here today. Animals and diet it's a big thing for people.
And
how
Jesus
to proceed fashionably. Yes, Jesus and religion. And what continues to just uplift me is how we talk about these things so beautifully. We're supposed to be hamstrung socially. We're supposed to have these challenges. And yet, again and again in our sessions, I see this radical compassion and open-mindedness. And it just moves me every time. It's wonderful. So thank you so much.
Before we say goodbye, I brought Lucy. So I've made this from her ashes. There's a company that does this in Singapore, and they create little stones. So in my locket is a kind of like etching of her. You can't really see that clearly. And then little heart-shaped stones that they created from her ashes. And I know it's just a symbol, but it's a way that I can show people that they can understand that I bring her with me everywhere.
That's beautiful, Dawn Joy. I love that. I'm so thankful to you for what you brought to us today.
Thank you.
Just an inspiring, in the best sense, it gets overused, the word inspiring, but truly inspiring what you brought today. And thank you for everyone who participated.
Thank you, everyone.
And we'll be joining each other again next month for our next speaker. We'll keep everyone posted about that. And in the meantime, please, everyone, take care of yourselves and know that you are not alone.
Thank you. Thank you all.